welcome to this video. I'm so excited. Clyde and I finally just rode our first couple strides of Canter. It's been really hard to try to teach him that that's what I want him to do. But I gotta tell you, I am so in love with his horse. He is trying so darn hard and he's so friggin' adorable. So check this out. So I've been working with Clyde with a bit and working on trying to get him a little bit more accepting of some contact. I think he has a lot of potential as a dressage horse, and to do that he needs to be able to be accepting of a bit. So you see he does a little bit of that kind of rooting with his mouth a little bit, kind of a little bit poking his nose forward. And so we've been working on developing a soft contact and a soft touch. And as I'm riding around, I'm just practicing with kind of steady contact and using my leg a little bit, asking him to meet that contact. And we have some beautiful stuff happening where I'm really, really happy with what he's giving me and looking really, really soft. Like this here is looking really nice. I'm pretty happy with that. And I'm not riding in a noseband. To me, it's important that the horse has freedom of speech, if you will, that they can let me know if it's too much, that he can open his mouth and get away from me. That's looking super duper nice. And I find if I stay in the same kind of trot, it works out pretty well. But then now what I've been working on is moving him out into bigger trots and then bringing him back to more collected trots. So he's going around at different speeds of trot, and I'll maintain them for a little bit of time and ask him to be soft to that as we go around, trying to be pretty steady in my contact and steady in my position for him. Here I'm moving him out into one of those bigger trots, and his balance comes apart a little bit where he brings his head up a little bit and isn't super even with his kind of floatiness and whatnot, but he's understanding, move forward and come back. There we nearly ran into Valero. That's Mr. Valero, who you guys know from some of my other videos. So I ended up selling him to Melody. That's Melody there, who's a student at the farm. So he's still poking around at the farm with his student and doing good stuff. But anyways, back to Mr. Clyde. So we practice, moving forward into a more forward trot and then bringing him back into a more collected trot. And the goal is to try to maintain a soft contact throughout it all. And so that's what he's learning to develop. So you can see when he comes into the bigger trot, he tends to get a little bit more mouthy, a little bit bracy with me. And so we have a hard time, or I shouldn't say a hard time because he's doing pretty well, but it's more challenging for us to move into the bigger trot and then come back into the slower trot or the more collected trot without any brace or any tension at all. But it's looking pretty nice. Like that was a pretty nice transition there. And then I bring him out into a bigger trot here, and you can see we just get a little bit unbalanced, a little bit uncoordinated together. His head kind of comes around a little bit, and a little bit of mouthiness there, a little bit of him being like, like this is hard, like this is a little bit harder to deal with. And you're not going to see me like reefing on his mouth or yanking on him or punishing him. I'm trying to show him that we can find like a softness to each other where we're kind of holding each other's hands a little bit. So he kind of pokes his nose out at me there through the transition. And I just ask him to kind of soften a little bit and try to ask him to be soft. And then here when I ask him to back up, he's obviously opening his mouth and kind of resistant to that. And I'm not getting mad. I'm not yanking on him. I'm not telling him he's awful. I'm just waiting for him to be a little bit quieter. So rating right about there. See, I want to try to back on a moment when he's not fully gaping in his mouth, where he's a little bit softer. I'm not expecting perfection, just something that's a little bit better. Our up transitions are significantly better than the down transitions. So something that we've got to work on a little bit. And I have to be careful that I'm not being too inconsistent with my hands or that I'm getting too low and kind of planting my hands. I have to try to think about lifting him onto his hind end rather than letting him fall forward. There's some beautiful stuff happening there. So he definitely gives me moments of like gorgeousness. And then I also ride across the diagonal sometimes, not doing extended trot, to make sure he understands that we're not always charging across the arena. So there's a little halt transition and he fusses a little bit. So I'm just waiting until he stopped fussing before I gave him the reins. So just practicing on having a bit of a softer mouth. So then we wanted to work on trying to get some canter strides with him. So we're using a jump for that. Clyde is the type of horse where I feel like if I were to just kind of try to kick him really hard or use a dressage whip on him and something like that, I feel like I would just terrify the bejesus out of him. He's such a horse that tries so darn hard, and even when I'm lunging him over the jumps and stuff, that can be pretty difficult for him. So I wanted to instead see if I could use a jump to help him get going and find that canter. And you would think that after a big jump like that you would land in canter, but Mr. Clyde does not. Like, look at the speed that we come in, and he somehow lands in trot. It's like, are you serious? How do you do that? Like, look at the speed here. And trot. Like, what do you mean you're doing that? It's kind of crazy. And in a different video, there's a lunging video of him, and he jumps 4'3" at a trot, and it's like, how do you seriously do that? So then we think, okay, well, let's try some placing pulls. Let's see if we can add some placing pulls here and help you to figure out that we actually want some type of canter stride. So we, like, you can see he was very balanced there. He kind of gave me a stride as he comes over. There he gives me kind of strides as we add in more placing pulls. It's like, okay, like, that's really good. You're going to get a cookie. And so there's moments where he gets that happening really nicely. And then other times when he just kind of trots right through. So I think he genuinely just does not understand what it is I'm asking him to do. I think he's very capable of going into a canter. I just think he's got no clue that that's what I want him to do. So I almost wonder if maybe in his past, if he was a cart horse and got in trouble for going into a canter, or I have no idea. Or maybe if he, I don't know, wasn't allowed to canter, but it just seems clueless for him. Like, why would you want me to canter? So we did multiple times of trying to come through little grids and seeing if we could get him to hold the canter longer. It's tough because if you're moving him out enough, like, it's hard to find the right striding for him. We set them for horse size, but if I'm trying to do a faster speed to encourage him to jump, then it almost makes it a little too tight. So it is a little bit tricky, and we definitely had a couple fails, but he's a good sport. He tried really darn hard, really, really good boy. So we made a one stride, and that seemed to help him a little bit more. And this next one is the one that we ended up finishing on. Super proud of this guy. Lots of heart, lots of try. Anyways, I love him. Let me know what you guys think.